Nick Marsh was already productive. He was already proven. He was already one of the most dangerous young receivers in the Big Ten. But sometimes the story does not fully change until the setting changes. And for Nick Marsh, that setting is now Bloomington, Indiana. He is not arriving as a mystery. He is not arriving as a projection with no proof behind the name. Marsh is coming to Indiana after 2 seasons at Michigan State, where he became one of the few bright spots in an offense that needed one. Now, he steps into a different world, a program with real momentum, a receiving room with national attention, a new quarterback, a coach who does not seem interested in letting talent be comfortable, and a 2026 season that could decide whether Nick Marsh is simply a really good college receiver or one of the first wideouts taken in the 2027 NFL Draft. This is the story of Indiana's new weapon. Before Indiana, before the portal, before the first-round buzz, Nick Marsh was one of the top players in the Detroit area. He came out of River Rouge High School in Michigan as a 4-star recruit with the kind of frame college coaches look for early. At 6'3" with basketball background, track experience, and real production on the football field, Marsh looked like a receiver who could grow into a boundary problem. As a senior, he caught 41 passes for 718 yards and 8 touchdowns. He earned all-state honors, played in the All-American Bowl, and drew offers from major programs across the country. Michigan, Oregon, Penn State, Notre Dame, Tennessee, Miami, Oklahoma, Wisconsin, and others were involved. But Michigan State had the home state pull. Marsh committed, decommitted, took visits, and still found his way back to the Spartans. At the time, Michigan State was not just landing a talented receiver. They were landing a player who looked like he could become part of the rebuild. And it did not take long for the talent to show. In just his second college game, Marsh walked into Maryland and gave Michigan State a performance that made people stop and pay attention. 8 catches, 194 yards, a touchdown, a 77-yard score, and fourth-quarter plays that helped Michigan State win a road game. That was not a normal freshman flash. That was a warning sign. By the end of his true freshman season in 2024, Marsh had 41 catches for 649 yards and 3 touchdowns. He set Michigan State true freshman records for receptions and receiving yards. He led the team in receiving yards, tied for the team lead in touchdown catches, and became the first Spartan true freshman with multiple 100-yard receiving games. The second one came against Iowa, where he caught 8 passes for 113 yards. That matters because freshman production can be noisy. Sometimes a young player gets one explosive game, then disappears. Marsh did not disappear. He came back in 2025 and became even more central to Michigan State's offense. As a sophomore, he started every game. He caught 59 passes for 662 yards and 6 touchdowns. He led the Spartans in receptions, receiving yards, and receiving touchdowns. He earned honorable mention All Big Ten recognition. And against Indiana, the school he would later join, he crossed 1,000 career receiving yards. In 2 seasons at Michigan State, Nick Marsh finished with 100 catches, 1,311 yards, and 9 touchdowns. Those are not empty traits. That is production. But production does not always equal momentum. Michigan State was struggling. The offense was inconsistent. The program was unstable. After the 2025 season, head coach Jonathan Smith was fired, and the portal opened a new door. Marsh entered the transfer portal on December 1st, 2025, and a little over a month later, on January 4th, 2026, he committed to Indiana. That move is where the story turns, because Indiana is not being viewed the same way anymore. This is not the old version of Indiana football, where a transfer receiver goes to disappear from the national conversation. Under Curt Cignetti, Indiana has become a serious Big Ten program with real confidence, real expectations, and a real pull in the transfer portal. That is why Marsh's move matters. At Michigan State, he was the bright spot. At Indiana, he has a chance to be a centerpiece. And that is a different kind of pressure. Real quick, if you're loving this deep dive, hit the like button and subscribe so you never miss another player journey. When Marsh arrived at Indiana, he did not walk into a quiet room. He walked into a receiver group with talent, expectations, and opportunity. Indiana had production to replace, including Elijah Sarrett, who had become one of the program's most important pass catchers. They also had a new quarterback situation, with Josh Hoover coming in after the departure of Fernando Mendoza. That means Marsh was not brought in just to be another body. He was brought in to matter. A 6'3" outside receiver with 2 years of Big Ten production, contested catchability, toughness after the catch, and the kind of physical style that can translate on Sundays. And the first real public moment of his Indiana career was not a highlight. It was a wake-up call. On the first day of spring practice, Marsh reportedly showed up in flashy gold cleats. Curt Cignetti did not love it. He made that clear publicly. He said Marsh learned what getting ripped was all about. For some players, that kind of moment can become friction. For Marsh, it may become part of the transformation. Because Cignetti later praised the tape. He talked about Marsh's blocking. He called him a warrior. He mentioned watching him catch a slant in the low red zone, break 3 tackles, and score. That is the real story inside the story. Indiana is not just adding talent. Indiana is trying to sharpen talent. And Marsh is the perfect test case. The scouting profile is already easy to understand. He has size, he has strength, he can win through contact, he has reliable ball skills, he can work the short and intermediate areas, he can make defenders miss after the catch, and he has shown he is willing to block, which matters more to NFL teams than casual fans usually realize. He is not just a jump ball receiver, he is a big target who can take a slant, absorb contact, and turn a simple throw into a problem. That is why the Indiana fit is so interesting. If the offense gives him cleaner spacing, better quarterback play, and more chances to attack isolated matchups, Marsh could take a leap that looks bigger than the player actually changing. Sometimes the traits are already there. The environment just has to reveal them. That is the pressure of 2026. Marsh does not need to prove he can play college football. He already did that. He needs to prove he can dominate in a better situation. He needs to show that the freshman records were not just early promise, that the sophomore production was not just volume on a struggling team, that the move to Indiana was not just a change of uniform, but the beginning of a new draft profile. That is why early 2027 mock drafts have started to put him in the first-round conversation. But that conversation is still fragile. Preseason buzz is not draft status. For Marsh to truly lock himself into that range, the 2026 season has to become the breakout. He probably needs the kind of year where the numbers are loud, the games are memorable, and the film confirms what scouts already want to believe. A 1,000-yard season would change the conversation. Double-digit touchdowns would change it even more. Big performances against top Big Ten defenses would make it real. Because right now, Nick Marsh is sitting in that exciting but dangerous space between projection and proof. The tools are there, the production is there, the opportunity is there, but the final step still has to happen. And that is what makes this story worth watching. Marsh is not a finished product being handed a crown. He is a talented receiver walking into a program that will demand more from him. The gold cleats moment matters because it showed him right away that Indiana was not going to treat him like a portal trophy. They were going to coach him. They were going to challenge him. They were going to ask him to become more than what he already was. At Michigan State, Nick Marsh proved he could stand out when the team around him was struggling. At Indiana, he has to prove he can elevate when the team around him is expecting to win. That is the difference. And if he makes that leap, the 2027 NFL draft conversation could look very different by this time next year, because the league is always looking for big receivers who can win physically, create after the catch, and handle real targets in real games. Nick Marsh has already shown pieces of that player. Now Indiana gets the chance to unlock the full version, the Detroit area 4-star, the Michigan State freshman record setter, the Spartan bright spot, the portal prize, and now Indiana's new weapon. That's the story in Football Realm. If you love deep player journeys, hit subscribe and join the realm. Drop your thoughts below. Who do you want profiled next?